study in the book of Romans. Today we're going to be in Romans chapter 7. And today we're just going to be looking at one verse. Again, Romans chapter 7. We're going to be looking at one verse this morning. But to get some context to this one verse, I'm going to go back up to chapter 6, verse 20. To give us some context of what Paul is getting at in chapter 7, verse 1. This chapter 7 is going to set the stage, or this one verse is going to set the stage of what Paul is going to do in the rest of the chapter. Again, the famous verses that we know of in chapter 7, it comes in at kind of at the end of chapter 7, like verse 21. So I find it to be the law that when I want to do right, evil lies close at hand. And so those verses that Paul is we say that Paul is fighting back and forth, and we don't really understand what Paul is getting at if we don't get the first part of this right in chapter 7. And also how chapter 6 relates to it. So I'm going to read chapter 6, verse 20. I'm going to stop at verse 1, and Lord's willing, in the weeks ahead, we can continue breaking down chapter 7. So Romans chapter 6, starting at verse 20. For when you were slaves of sin, you were free in regard to righteousness. But what fruit were you getting at that time from the things of which you are now ashamed? For the end of those things is death. But now that you have been set free from sin and have become slaves of God,